Hi, I'm Masar, and today we're going to be talking about forms of government. This is the political spectrum. It looks super complicated, and that's on purpose. This is to show you that governments always fall somewhere on a spectrum. Each country doesn't really represent one exact type of government. It's fluid. Some countries will have pieces of different governments put together, and they all fit somewhere on a spectrum according to who holds power and how much power is in the hands of the people. This spectrum is another way of looking at it. On our vertical axis here, governments are organized by how much power they have. So an authoritarian government is going to have total control over the people, whereas an anarchy means that the government has no control and doesn't exist at all. On the horizontal axis, governments can be organized by how much power is in the hands of the individual versus how much power is in the hands of the society as a whole. A government could be placed anywhere on this chart. So this shows just how fluid it can be, and that these terms don't apply 100% in any situation. This map represents different systems of government around the world. In the blue, we have full presidential republics like we have here in the US. Another common system is the presidential parliamentary system that we'll talk about later. Less common are absolute monarchies, one-party states, which are communist governments, and military dictatorships, but they still do exist in some countries. There are 3 different ways to classify a country's government, according to which level of government holds power, how many people hold power, and how those people get power. The key word here being power. Every classification is going to come back to that in some way. The first type of classification is according to which level of government holds power. In a unitary government, the top level, the federal or national government, holds the most power. In a confederacy, which is what the United States used to be, the state government holds the most power. And in a federal government, all the levels share power equally, so the national, state, and local government all have some power shared between them. The second way to classify a government is according to how many people hold power. In an anarchy, where there's no government at all, no one rules. When one person is in charge, this could be a monarchy or a dictatorship. A few people can be in charge. This is called an oligarchy. Or all of the people can have power, and this is known as a democracy. So the first type is an autocracy where one person is in charge. There are different types of autocracies. For example, there's a dictatorship. The dictator takes power. Usually, they will get the military on their side and then they'll overthrow the existing government. An example of this might be Fidel Castro in Cuba. Another type of an autocracy is a monarchy. This is where the king or queen is in charge. A king or queen is different because they inherit power. So their father or mother before them was king or queen, and then their children will be king or queen, and power is passed down through the family. Within this, there are even different types of monarchies. An absolute monarchy is a true autocracy because the king or queen has total and complete power. A constitutional monarchy isn't really a true autocracy because the king or queen have limited power. They're limited by a constitution. As an example, England used to be an absolute monarchy, but eventually, with the Magna Carta and other documents, the king and queen's power was limited. Today, England is a constitutional monarchy, and Queen Elizabeth is essentially just a figurehead. The second type is an oligarchy. This is where a few people are in charge. Usually, an oligarchy is an aristocracy, where the aristocrats or the wealthy class hold power. There might be elections, but these aren't usually real, and typically they're rigged by the people in power. Type 3 is a democracy. This is where the people are in charge. The people give power to their government by voting in elections. There are also different types of democracy. There's a direct democracy, where people vote directly on each and every issue. This only works in small groups, and it originated in ancient Greece, which was much smaller than the United States is today. Here, we now have an indirect democracy. We vote for representatives, and those representatives then vote on the issues. 2 other types include anarchy and theocracy. An anarchy is where there is no government and no one has power. And a theocracy is where there's a religious government in power. So examples of this might include So examples of this might include the Saudi Arabian government or perhaps the Amish. So to review, autocratic means rule by one. This is an autocracy, like a dictatorship or a monarchy. Oligarchic means rule by a few. This is where a small group of people are in charge in an oligarchy, sometimes an aristocracy. Democratic means rule by all. This is where the people are in charge, either directly or indirectly. The last classification is according to how people get power. We've already talked about a dictatorship, where one person takes power, and a monarchy, where one person inherits power. There's two other types known as a presidential democracy and a parliamentary democracy. So here in the US, we vote for Congress or a legislative branch. We also vote separately for the president. The president is not part of the legislative branch. This is different from a parliamentary relationship. This is where voters elect their legislature, and the legislature will choose one of themselves to become the chief executive, usually called a prime minister. So this is different because the people do not choose who the chief executive is going to be, but rather their representatives choose. The chief executive is part of the legislative branch in this type. An example of this today would be Canada. Pop quiz, which of these terms apply to the United States? Now remember, there's 3 ways to classify a government, so you should have one term from each category. According to which level holds power, our national, state, and local governments all share power between them, so this is a federal system. We're also a democracy because the people hold the power, and we're a presidential democracy because we elect our president directly, as opposed to him being chosen by Congress. Now, which terms apply to the US from this selection? This was a trick question. We're actually all 3 of these. So a representative democracy is the exact same thing as an indirect democracy, also sometimes called a republic. So to review, this is where we elect representatives and then they vote on the issues for us, indirectly. The key thing to take away from this lesson today is that each government can be classified in a lot of different ways and many different terms can apply to many different governments.